Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramartanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. We salute Lord Krishna, the world teacher, the son of Vasudeva, destroyer of Kamsa and Chanura, supreme bliss of Devaki. So you'll know that from the prayer, we're celebrating Krishna's birthday, but this is also our Wednesday Spiritual Seekers Question Answer. And so we can begin, of course, with your questions. And so I'll mute the microphone as usual while you formulate something and fire away.
Swami, I could ask you a question, because, yesterday night you talked about nature and you said rightly there is no straight lines in nature. But, there's, I think you're right, but on the other side, Leonardo da Vinci, he showed that the man has proportion, a square and a circle. So there is an order in this nature. Maybe there is no straight line, but there is a kind of order. Do you understand? It's in English they say the Vitruvian man. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So there is no straight line, but there is a circle and a square, for the man. So the circle and the square are in the nature, in ourselves. No, there's some. It's a double thinking. No.
Well, you see, there's a harmonious aspect to what we call nature. And we can see this as pairs of opposites. That's how it's described in all the scriptures. So, some examples of pairs of opposites: hot and cold, praise and blame, good and evil, light and dark, light and shade. And then we have harmony and discord. And even at the subatomic level, we have matter, we have antimatter, an electron, a positron, and so on. So from the very earliest Vedic texts, we have Indra fighting against Vritra, and you can see that it is this struggle that we call the universe. But really what it's doing is it's a constant balancing thing. Like when you drive a car, don't expect the car to go straight by itself. It will go a little bit this way, a little bit that way, and the road also will go here and there. And so we have to make the adjustment. And nature, it seems as if nature is adjusting it now. Of course, from our point of view, we can imagine it is the Lord who is doing this. The Lord is running nature and continuously making the adjustments. And from age to age, it gets born. That famous passage, you see. Yada yada hi dharmasya granir bhavati bhavata. See. Abhutanam adharmasya tadatvanam shriyam aham. Whatever there is, whenever there is a disruption in the harmonious state of affairs throughout the whole universe, then that being that is responsible for sustaining the harmony, one which is all-pervading and fills the whole universe, that one gets born in the realm of humans, the highest of the evolutionary orders, and adjusts this morality or harmony, here called a dharma and adharma. And you'll find in all the Indian mythological tales, it is a struggle, even from the early days of the Vedas, it's a struggle between these two forces. It has to be like that. It's the way that the universe seems to work. And you have to have antagonistic forces at the fundamental level. Gravity wants to pull everything in. Electrical energy wants to push everything out. And this harmony creates an atomic structure so that the electron that spins around, as it were, or oscillates or is present in different levels around, as it's perceived, around the nucleus, obeys certain laws and has the capacity to jump. It was, I think, Niels Bohr, the great physicist, that gave us a picture of a 10-story building, let's say, and you have an electron, let's say on the 10th floor, jumping to the second floor. And when we say jump, this is there's no time involved. It simply disappears and simultaneously reappears. And the further it jumps, as it were, the more brilliant the light it emits. It emits photons. So the whole thing is working in harmony, because if it wasn't like that, we wouldn't get this radiation from photons or from atoms. So the whole of the universe is working in a simple but complex way, creating order and immediately adjusting where we find some kind of disorder. That is, some kind of upset in the harmony. Dharma, as I told you probably previously, comes from a root, which means the thing that secures or holds things together. When things are held together nicely, then things run smoothly with a certain rhythm. Now, the personalization of the supreme divinity, the divine entity, what we call in philosophy Brahman, when it enters into, or when it is linked with all the various networking components of what we call the world, such as time and space and function, change, time, space, all of these things, when it enters into that realm and sustains this balance, we call this Vishnu, literally the one that is pervading everywhere, omnipresent everywhere. Now, that means that we have the opportunity to see the Lord Vishnu everywhere. And we are only suffering from a misinterpretation, misunderstanding of the world in front of us. And that is why, when there's a specific need, there is this avatar and this that enters into the picture. Now, for a fuller explanation of avatara, we have to take a text which is only second to the Bhagavad Gita. We have the Upanishads, the fundamental scriptures. We have the Bhagavad Gita, which summarizes it beautifully. And the central dialogue is between Krishna. So it's Krishna Jayanti. This is Krishna as an incarnation. That means that the word becomes flesh according to the system many times. We won't enter into theological discussions about it, but that is the point of view of the system, and there is declared in the Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna himself declares it. And from age to age, the cosmic balancing power enters in, appears as the appropriate being, and adjusts things. And Krishna is the 8th such incarnation, and the various other incarnations are described in this Bhagavata Purana. Now, it is a Purana, that means it is a secondary scripture, a tertiary scripture even. That means, you see that it is not as authoritative as other scriptures, and yet it is the only scripture anywhere that says, by reading it, by studying it, you get freedom, you get liberation straight away, because it contains the heart. The whole purpose of this Bhagavatam, which tells, among other texts, which tells the life of Krishna in the 10th chapter, the 10th section, the 10th book of this Bhagavatam. And the whole purpose is to let us know this particular incarnation that is called Krishna. The clue, of course, is in the name. The word Krishna means somebody who is dark or dark blue. And why should that be so? Well, we can have both, because when the sun sets and you look into the night sky, it is black. That means, you see, that the whole, and this is what I was discussing yesterday also, that what we call the universe is nothing more than the body of Purushottama, the cosmic person. This whole universe is not divorced from its creator. We can say poetically that the divine being created the world, but we have to add an entity into it and keeps it running. Without that, nothing is running. And it's the same thing with the localized version of it, called a human body. When the divine life is withdrawn from it, then the body doesn't have any motion or activity. It's entirely dependent on the existence of the indwelling Lord, who sits there as the emperor of our particular universe, which is really made in the image and likeness of this divine. And the image and likeness means that everything that we have as a human, we have on the cosmic level. So Krishna, his incarnation, not only as a balancing person, but his whole life, all the episodes that are portrayed in his life, show that not only is he a balancing power, but he's also a loving power. And the whole of this Bhagavata Purana will shift our attention from purely the intellectual and put us into the heart. And so Krishna is portrayed as a godchild, a prankster, a model lover, divine hero, and also a universal supreme being. In other words, every aspect of this divine you can ever think of. And we can relate to it on the human level, because we have been children, because as children we have been joyful enough to be pranksters. And then in teenagehood or early 20s, possibly, we were a model lover and a divine hero if we become man enough or woman enough, mature enough. And then ultimately, what is our nature? Our nature is the universal supreme principle, supreme being. So Krishna's iconography, how he's portrayed, reflects many of these legends associated with these phases of life, and shows him at different stages of life, such as an infant eating butter. One of the epithets of Krishna is Hari. Hari means thief, the one who steals your heart. See how it's put. And what is the symbolism of it? Is also the one who takes your blemishes away. And so a story is constructed. In his youth, he loves butter. And of course, his circumstances comes about. He's taken away from his royal household, from his father Vasudeva and Devaki. Vasudeva manages to rescue him from being slaughtered by Kamsa. Now Kamsa is Devaki's brother. But Kamsa is of the lineage of Asuras. That means those people who genetically, let us say, you can't inherit evil genetically, but you see, if your upbringing and if your environment and if your previous choice of a previous life is selfishness, ruthlessness, then you'll be born like that, of course. Now Kamsa is somebody like that in the line of the Asuras, destroying the whole earth. That's how the story goes. And in the Bhagavata, we find that the scene begins with Mother Earth in the guise of a cow. See the link. It comes before Brahma, the creator. This Kamsa is destroying the whole me, destroying the earth. Now we can see such a rare reflection of it in these modern times. How we, the Asuras, are destroying the earth. Mother Earth allowing us to plow up her skin so we can find minerals, not respecting the lungs that she uses, called forests, and all the rest of it, polluting her veins, her rivers, and her whole water system, the air that we breathe, and so on. We are doing this, no doubt. So this is how it begins. But I see, Lionel, you have your hand up, so please ask your question.
Good evening, everybody. I understand your statement, and yeah, I feel that we feel very concerned with what is going on with the planet Earth. I mean, as a whole, I noticed that there is an uprising of the collective consciousness in related to this subject. So I understand that it's very important to remain positive, even if the scientists are very clear on their analysis.
Yes, thankfully, there is a consciousness about the state of global warming and the possible contribution that man has to make on it. We say possible, more than likely it's there. The one thing that critics have to say is we don't really have accurate information. And so maybe some of the information is difficult, and maybe some of it is accurate, and maybe some of it is not. But even so, if you look at rubbish around, let's say in the seas and what have you, this has nothing to do with global warming, but it is simply our attitude towards Mother Earth. And so there is a lot that could be done, of course, and there's a lot that we are hopeless, we cannot do. There are solutions, practical solutions. If every country plants evergreen trees or trees and foliage in abundance, then this will also help. If we stop cutting down forests and so on, these will help. But where does it stem from? Well, you can boil it down to foolishness, selfishness. Selfishness, foolishness, an interpretation of man's superiority rather than man's reliance on the life giver that we are calling, in this case, Vishnu. And so you can see that this Vishnu, this all-pervading one, enters into it. And as I said, the scene begins with the Mother Earth, and then all the forces of the universe gathering around Vishnu, that is, that supreme, in the role of protector and sustainer of the universe. Now, what relevance does it have to environmental concerns? Well, you can see the story. It's not that the environment has to be adjusted. It's that the people responsible for destroying it have to be dealt with. And we can see the temperamental personality of this Kamsa. So in the story that we are given, there's he is wonderfully celebrative of the marriage between Vasudeva and Devaki. But you see, and drives the chariot for their marriage and so on and so forth. But now he hears a voice. Some kind of intuition strikes him. And all intuition really comes from inside, even though we portray it as coming from outside, and says, Well, in this line, these children that will come from Vasudeva and Devaki, the 8th child will destroy you completely. The 8th child, the 8th boy, well, the 8th child will be a boy, and that will be destructive because you come from the line of Asuras. But there are others, Yadavas, and their clan is pristine and pure and perfect and simple. And so they represent the positive side of things. And there we have Kamsa representing the destructive side of things. And so, yes, Vishnu comes down as Krishna. There's one thing that we could say that as a name of Vishnu, Krishna is listed as the 57th name in the 1,000 names, the Vishnu Sahasranama. And among the most common names are Mohan, Enchanter, Govinda, Chief Herdsman. You can see the Mother Earth is coming in the form of a cow, and the theme of cow is being carried. Why? Because cow represents the abundance of the earth in terms of husbandry, in terms of, pastoral care and agriculture and so on. After all, it is the cow that yields milk. It is the cow that fertilizes your field. It's the cow that plows your field. It is the cow that takes your goods to market. It's your cow that produces fertilizer when dried as fuel and also as an antiseptic when you put it on the floors and walls of your house. And therefore, it represents the divine flowing grace, always present. And we catch it here and we call it the breathing action of the lungs, or we call it the heartbeat, or we call it an idea here and there, or we call it compassion. All of these things, all of these human traits, biological and psychological, these are all as a result of divine grace that is flowing. That means that God is not a bad investor. Each one of us has a purpose in life associated with fitting in a harmonious way, called Swadharma, finding out your individual role and using it to help others. Swami Vivekananda says quite pointedly, he who lives, lives for others. The rest are more dead than alive. So everything about Krishna, this incarnation, will be significant. Gopala, the protector of the cow, go, which means not only the cow but also the soul. So the tradition of Krishna appears really to be an amalgamation of several traditions, no doubt. And we find evidence way, way back of Krishna being worshipped even at the time of the Greek conquest of northwestern part of India, going way back, the 5th, 6th century before the current era. We find writings of Panini, and from the 2nd century BCE, we find epigraphy with the Heliodorus pillar, as it's called, and showing the evidence of this and the significance of Krishna, the Yadavas, and so on and so forth. But you see, if you study the life as it is contained in the Bhagavatam, we find all these beautiful episodes which portray love, principally. And nothing in the story denies that this is Vishnu in this form, and also gives us a sense of humor about life that ends up in a Krishna Lila, a wonderful dance with devotees called gopis, a playful interaction between him and the female gopis, culminating in a consolidation of that called Radha. And Radha and Krishna have this intimate relationship which tells about bhakti. And so Krishna is significant in the bhakti movement, coming away from the intellect and going into a new era, which we can call the Kali Yuga. Krishna dies in 3102 BC and then begins the Kali Yuga, and so a new age. So the whole thing is about 5,000 years old. But if we're not interested in history, that's okay. We have plenty of evidence of it. But significant to say that Krishna was always important. The importance gaining great momentum during the period of time where bhakti yoga was the principal way. And the Bhagvatam will tell us this. It will tell us that this is the shift of emphasis from the head to the heart. Now, the beauty about bhakti yoga, that is expanding the heart to love God with all our mind, all our strength, all our soul, all our energy, and so on. The beauty of that is the principal techniques that are discernment, viveka, and vairagya, detachment, are not required in the bhakti yoga. Why is that? It is because the episodes from the Bhagavata show us how each one of the gopis pined for Krishna. And then Krishna, to satisfy them, appears in multiple places, appears as uniquely present to each one. And when we see all these episodes of love, we can see the depths and the intensity of this form of yoga. No need for discernment, no need for detachment, only love will eclipse everything else and sort everything else out. And Krishna is represented in the Indian tradition in many, many different ways, but with some common features. You look at the iconography, you get a glimpse of what is the meaning. And typically it depicts him with black or dark or blue skin, just like Vishnu. But ancient and medieval reliefs and stone-based arts also show him in the natural color of the material out of which he is formed. Both in India and in Southeast Asia, and in some texts, his skin is poetically described as the color of jambul, that is yam, a kind of purple-colored fruit. And Krishna is often depicted wearing a peacock feather, you'll notice, as a wreath or a crown, and playing the bansuri, that is the bamboo flute. This has inspired many, many poets and songwriters, catching the spirit of love. Lord, make me your flute and put your sweet lips on me, that you may blow and produce your melodies through me. In Bhakti Yoga, we have to be content to be instruments of the divine. If you will, Krishna's flute. Krishna often depicted with bent leg and the flute. That is, one leg solidly on the ground and the other in a state of creativity, playfulness, if you will. And then there's the other episode in his life of lifting Govardhan, or depicted in many different places, lifting the mountain and so on. There's a great story of Krishna, and it's worthwhile reading that 10th book to get the whole biography. It's a lengthy chapter. The whole biography described there of Krishna, from Krishna's birth, the miraculous recovery, to to Nanda, the chief, and then to Yashoda, who looked after him, who acted as his own mother, and his playful nature, his prank, the frustration of his mother, there's a human element there, and him playing a joke, and then revealing himself, revealing his divinity as Vishnu through many, many incidents. And then growing up in this rural environment in Vrindavan as a cowboy with the gopis, with the love of cows, and that is why you find him there with the cow there. And when you see the cows, it is said you should see Krishna as well, invisibly present there also. It's an indication that everything that we see can be a signpost. There he is, there he is, there he is. I know at the Gretz ashram, for example, where they have some cows named and freely in the pastures, and you can really appreciate, yes, Krishna, you are here looking after the cows in the company, God's grace flowing in a simple rural kind of way. So Krishna grows up with Nanda and his wife Yashoda, and it's really near the modern day place called Mathura. And two of Krishna's siblings, they also survive the ruthlessness of Kamsa, namely Balaram and Subhadra. And according to all these legends, and the day of the birth of Krishna is celebrated today as Krishna Janamastmi. The legends of Krishna's childhood, as I've said, and youth describe him as this cowherder, a mischievous boy with pranks, because should we take life so seriously, or should we play with the divine Krishna? They earn him the nickname Makan Chor, or butter thief, and a protector who steals the hearts of the people, not only in Gokul and Vrindavan, but everywhere else in the world. So these are some of the episodes there. The primary legacy, though, of Krishna is the stunning involvement that he has in the Mahabharata that culminates in that philosophical text, the longest philosophical poem in the world, the Bhagavad Gita. In that Bhagavad Gita, there is absolutely nothing missing. And we find a synthesis of all the schools of thought of his day, Sankhya philosophy, a reconciliation of all these methods, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Raja Yoga are all combined in this text. Many years later, we see the most modern prophet that we have, Sri Ramakrishna, prophet of the modern age, who also makes an emphasis on this. And his mouthpiece, Swami Vivekananda, has these 4 texts, primary texts, reconciling these 4 yogas, not just in a modern way, but simply in a reiteration of what is contained there in the Bhagavad Gita already. So you can see in most traditions that Krishna is standing, we've described him as a boy, and then with the cowherds, and I've mentioned his presence with Radha, but this is a very special iconography which is there, because in Krishna-related Hindu tradition, he is most commonly seen with Radha. And all of his wives and his lover, Radha, they are considered in the Hindu tradition to be also incarnations with him, incarnations of the goddess Lakshmi, and who is, of course, the consort of Vishnu. And the gopis are considered as also Lakshmi, or Radha's manifestations. What a sweet picture that we have there of the intricate entwinement of the tender love that they have. This is why we have human love on that relational basis, because it's a reflection of the possibility of divine love. The Kurukshetra war, which is the background to the Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita, is, as I say, one of the most profound philosophical texts, even if it's the most philosophical text. But there's another great philosophical text, and that is the 11th book of the Bhagavad. In the 11th book, we find a discussion between Uddhava and Krishna. And this is on the eve of, as it were, Krishna's departure. He entered into the stage, he did the job, and now he's going back. Ramanuja, who as we know is a great Hindu theologian and philosopher, and whose works were influenced in or influential in the Bhakti movement, he presents Krishna in terms of qualified monism, Vishishta Dvaita. And Madhvacharya, who's also dedicated to the Bhakti movement, he presents Krishna in the framework of dualism, Dvaita. Beda Beda, a group of schools, teaches that the individual self is both different and non-different from the ultimate reality. And in fact, it predates positions of monism and dualism in a way. Among the medieval Beda Beda thinkers, we find Nimbarkacharya, who founded the Kumara Sampradaya tradition, and various philosophical schools are there, as well as Jiva Goswami, a saint from the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, and so on. And of course, we have our more modern, taking Krishna to be himself a god, independent and separate from anything else. And that is, of course, Srila Prabhupada's movement called ISKCON, Krishna consciousness. And while they are supposed to be Beda Beda, they are in practice more dualistic. So they have done a great favor because they have produced multiple copies free of charge of this Bhagavad Gita, even though their commentary may be biased toward this dualistic aspect, which is highlighting Krishna as a sole divine personality. The use of the term even bhakti, which means, of course, devotion, isn't confined to any one deity, of course. And Hinduism, Krishna is, of course, an important and popular focus of the devotionalism. Probably one of the most popular figures or representations of the divine. Devotees of Krishna, they subscribe to the concept of principally Leela, which is the most important outlook on life. All these episodes are described as Krishna Leela. And of course, this is associated with the dual term Leela Maya, which is explained so beautifully in his teaching, not only in the Bhagavad Gita, but also in this 11th chapter, or 11th book, I should say, of the Bhagavata, his discussion with Uddhava, which is also lengthy and profound. So today, as I say, we celebrate the birth of the Krishna incarnation. And in doing that, we are really celebrating all the incarnations, that is, all the cosmic attempts to balance this dharma. And the original question, which came, was about this balance between dharma and adharma, this regularity that we see in the whole universe, beautifully described, in fact, not only regularity, but also chaos, beautifully described in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And we require both. We require regularity, we require squares and triangles and rectangles. We require mathematical calculations, but we also require the surprise that the divine lover has for us that appears from day to day, we shouldn't complain about it. If we take it as a lila, we should take it with a sporting attitude and play the game and play it well. So I don't want to go on more on that. And of course, we can take more questions also, because we still have about 15 minutes to go. So I'm going to mute the microphone and see if there are any questions that have arisen from this.
Yeah, I have a question here about Vivekananda. His relation with Krishna is in the writings of the 4 yogas. Is it right? The relationship between Vivekananda and Krishna is his writings about the yoga, the 4 yogas. Did you say that? Did I understand well?
Yes, indeed. So in the Bhagavad Gita, we find chapters arranged according to different paths. Not only that, but the 12th chapter discusses the issue whether we should follow the path of the impersonal, of the imperishable, or whether we should follow the path of devotion, seeing worship of the single personality, divine personality, in this case of Krishna. And Krishna says quite emphatically, both paths are valid and both paths are true. But better one is essentially a loving attitude toward a personal God. Why? Because it's the easiest. We can easily take this energy that comes out as anger and jealousy and all the negative emotions and transform it into something positive. Energy is energy, and man has this unique characteristic that we can transform discord into harmony. A kind of machine like that, human machine, can do it. Divinely designed. So the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita describes a human condition which is at its lowest ebb. And the rest of the Bhagavad Gita is dedicated to how do we lift ourselves out of that condition. And the second chapter is really dedicated to the principle of it. The 6th chapter is dedicated to meditation. We call this Dhyana Yoga or Raja Yoga. Vivekananda writes this book, Raja Yoga. And then you see the Sankhya, as it's described, is really Jnana Yoga. This is from the 2nd chapter to the 5th chapter, emphasizing Karma Yoga, I should say. Karma Yoga. That is the immediate way out of this despondency, is to become active and to combine it with devotion as well. And you'll see that the 7th chapter to the 12th chapter is all about Bhakti Yoga. Now the 13th chapter onwards is about Jnana Yoga. It's about the principles of it. So you'll find in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna covers all these 4 bases. Vivekananda is exactly the same because Krishna does it. So, yes, that's the relationship.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Swami.
It's more about like, yes, indeed, when one is selfless, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the selfless service, therefore the Bhakti Yoga, that is leading towards back to Godhead, as I've understood. And that's, how can I say? So the process is the Bhakti Yoga, the Dharma, and can this be reached in the actual without being a monk, basically, with still having like a life that is like work and family life, and because yes, in most of the companies, not foundation, maybe the institution world, but it's not selfless. It's more the contrary. It's more interest. So it's more like I would say that it would be a kind of going the opposite way of selfless.
So selflessness is not the characteristic only of bhakti yoga. Selflessness, there are two requirements. Selflessness is one, and complete purity or truthfulness is the other. And of course, that's open to everybody. Everybody has the possibility of it. It is not just monks. In fact, some monks will be hard pressed to attain it. It's to do with the human willingness. It's to do with the dedication to a certain path. And so the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions this term, mentions sannyas, which today we interpret as monastic life. But neither Krishna nor Arjuna mean monastic life by this term, sannyas. They simply mean that kind of renunciation associated with jnana yoga. And then there's this term tyaga. Ramakrishna said, if you repeat this Gita, 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 you come up with tyagi, 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 indicating another kind of renunciation of the fruits of your activities. Most people are involved in karma yoga. Most people are involved in work. The key is to give up the fruits of your activities because they don't belong to you. And so, you see, in modern times, the term sannyas, it raises in the mind of any person the picture of an ordained monk or nun. But nobody here in this Bhagavad Gita thinks of this at all. And Krishna is a married man, and Arjuna is a married man, and there's no question of running away. Of course, Arjuna had wanted to do this. And the whole thing in the Bhagavad Gita is, please don't run away. Please come and face with great courage, and we all have to do it. And so Arjuna is asking in the 18th chapter for the Lord to decide which course is the most beneficial for him personally. Is it sannyas or karma yoga? And neither the Lord nor Arjuna, I have to point out again, think of monastic life when this question and this answer is given. In fact, it is simply the alternative to the yoga of action. That's all. The sannyas is the alternative to the yoga of action. And so the Lord even affirms that the person who is a perpetual sannyasin, who neither hates nor desires, and who is free from the pairs of opposites that we mentioned, that is a sannyasin. Nothing to do with monastic life. And even later, Arjuna wants to know the difference between sannyas and tyaga again. And the Lord's reply makes it abundantly clear that it's not directly meant for the first term. So what he says is, the wise declare sannyasa to be the giving up of desire-impelled actions, and tyaga is the abandonment of the fruits of all actions. These two things are necessary. Renunciation is necessary in every case. But what I mentioned was, in the case of bhakti yoga, no deliberate renunciation is necessary, since love overtakes and saturates everything else, becomes the key concern. Love makes you forget all the other small loves. Swami Vivekananda, in his lecture series on Bhakti Yoga, says the grand love substitutes for all the little loves. So that's the key to Bhakti Yoga. Well, if there are no further questions, then we can probably leave it there. And so I wish you happy and blessed Krishna Janamastmi. It's today and tomorrow, by the way, both. And so may Lord Krishna's blessings flow abundantly over you. And may you take his message contained in both the Bhagavatam and, which is an important message, the message to Uddhava, and contained in the Bhagavad Gita as a blueprint or a manual for your ongoing spiritual life. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Swami.
Swamiji.
Yes, Swami.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.